I used to stay at the laundromat longer than I needed to. Not because I liked it there. Nobody likes fluorescent lights that make everybody look tired. Nobody likes the smell of detergent mixed with wet concrete and overheated dryers. But my apartment upstairs got too quiet after 9 o'clock, and the laundromat downstairs stayed open all night. So sometimes I'd wash the same hoodie twice just to hear something moving around me. That's where I met her. First thing I noticed was her wedding ring. Not in some dramatic way either. Just her hands were resting on top of a dryer while she waited, fingers tapping softly against the metal. Gold band. Slightly scratched, like it had been there a long time. She looked up once and caught me staring. I remember pretending to check my phone, even though the screen was black. Machine 7 steals socks, she said. I looked over. What? That one. She pointed at the dryer beside me. Took 2 from me already this month. I laughed a little. Mostly because she said it so seriously. Good to know. Just trying to protect the next victim. That was it. No music swelling. No impossible chemistry. Just a woman in a gray sweater folding towels while rain hit the windows outside. Still, after that, I started coming later on Thursdays. She usually came around 10:30. Always carried the same faded blue laundry basket against her hip. Always bought tea from the vending machine, even though everybody knew it tasted like hot paper towels. Sometimes she'd tuck loose hair behind her ear while reading receipts she didn't seem to care about. I learned small things without meaning to. She folded fitted sheets carefully, like she respected difficult things. She checked her phone every few minutes, but rarely smiled at it. Once, she laughed quietly to herself reading a text, then immediately looked sad after. I noticed stuff like that. Too much, probably. At 24, loneliness turns you observant in embarrassing ways. You start memorizing strangers' routines because it feels safer than admitting you don't really have your own. I had friends, technically. Group chats muted for days. Half-finished conversations. A mother who sent question marks when I forgot to reply. Most nights I'd type something to somebody, then delete it before sending. You start doing that enough, eventually silence becomes muscle memory. Her name was Claire. I learned that because the owner called out to her one night when the coin machine jammed. Claire, hold on, I'll reset it. She thanked him with this tired smile that looked practiced, like she'd spent years making people comfortable. I don't know when exactly I started waiting for her voice. Maybe it was the night the storm knocked the power out for 3 seconds and everybody in the laundromat froze. When the lights came back, she looked at me and said, "Well, if we died, at least we died productive." I laughed harder than the joke deserved. She noticed. That embarrassed me for some reason. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah. Sorry. Long week." Those stack up. The dryers hummed between us after that. I remember she folded one towel 3 separate times while we talked. Not nervous exactly, just distracted. Then her phone buzzed. She looked down at the screen, and something in her face changed. Not anger. Not happiness either. More like someone remembering they left the stove on at home. "My husband's waiting," she said softly. That word sat strangely in the room. Husband. I nodded too fast. Right? Yeah, of course. She slid her phone into her coat pocket, but didn't move right away. "Good night," she said. "Night." She got halfway to the door before turning back. "Oh," she said, pointing toward my dryer. Machine 7 stopped again. I looked over. She smiled a little. "Told you it steals things." Then she disappeared into the rain. Later that night, back upstairs in my apartment, I realized one of my socks actually was missing. And for some reason, I almost texted somebody about it. After that, we started talking like people who accidentally built a routine around each other. Not every night. That would have made it obvious. Just enough that I started checking the clock around 10 without meaning to. Sometimes she'd already be there when I walked in, sitting on top of one of the folding tables with a paper cup between both hands. Sometimes I'd arrive first and catch myself looking up every time the door opened. It got embarrassing fast. One Thursday, she was struggling with a jammed washer lid. "You have to slam it," I said. "That feels aggressive. It respects force." She gave me a look over the top of the machine. "You're 24. Why do you sound 48? I've had a difficult life." "You lost a sock." "Several socks." That made her laugh again. Quiet but real this time. The kind that sneaks out before people remember themselves. I leaned against the machine while she pushed the lid shut harder. There, I said. Violence. Thank you. I'll add that to my skill set. The laundromat was mostly empty that night. Just the sound of spinning dryers and an old ceiling fan clicking every few seconds like it was thinking too hard. Claire brought actual tea from home instead of using the vending machine. She handed me one without asking. I stared at it for a second. You made two. You look like someone who forgets to eat dinner. That's specific. You have cereal for dinner energy. I laughed because she was right. That bothered me a little. Not that she noticed. Just that nobody else really had. We sat beside each other near the window while rain slid slowly down the glass outside. Not touching. Not close enough to mean anything. Still, I could feel her there in this strange, steady way. You married? She asked eventually. The question caught me off guard. No. Girlfriend. I shook my head. What does mean? Nothing. No, that was definitely a judgmental. She smiled into her tea. You seem careful. I looked down at the paper cup in my hands. Truth was, careful wasn't the word for it. Disconnected maybe. Like I'd spent the last few years standing slightly outside my own life watching everybody else figure theirs out first. My last relationship ended weird, I admitted. She waited. I appreciated that she waited. She said talking to me felt like knocking on a door nobody answered behind. Claire didn't say anything right away. The dryers turned. Somebody dropped coins near the vending machine in the back. Then softly, she said, that sounds like something people say when they want you to punish yourself forever. I looked at her. She kept her eyes on her cup. I used to do that, she added after a second. With my husband. Turn every argument into evidence against myself. That was the first time she'd mentioned him without sounding automatic. I noticed she twisted her wedding ring when she talked about him. Just once around her finger, then back again. You still do? I asked carefully. She shrugged one shoulder. Depends on the day. I should have left it there. Instead, I found myself imagining her at home. Different lighting. Different voice. Somebody else hearing her laugh in another room. The thought sat badly in my chest. And that's when I realized this had already crossed into dangerous territory inside my head. Not because anything happened. Because I wanted something to. When her dryer finished, she stood and brushed invisible lint from her sweater. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. Why do you always look sad right before you smile? I blinked at her. No one had ever asked me something like that before. Before I could answer, she reached over absent-mindedly and fixed the bent collar of my jacket. Just that. 2 fingers against fabric near my neck. Quick. Casual. Still, after she walked away, I sat there staring at my untouched tea like it had changed temperature in my hands. After that night, things got strange in the quietest possible way. Not dramatic strange. Worse. Careful strange. Claire started arriving later than usual. Sometimes only 15 minutes before closing. Sometimes not at all. And every time the laundromat door opened, my eyes lifted before I could stop them. I hated that about myself. One Thursday, I brought a book just to prove I could sit there without waiting for her. I read the same sentence 6 times. Then she walked in wearing a dark green coat damp from the rain. And suddenly, I knew absolutely nothing about the book anymore. Hey, she said softly. Hey. That was all. Still, my heartbeat changed. Embarrassing. Completely embarrassing. She kept her distance that night, folding clothes at the far counter instead of beside me, checking her phone too often, her shoulders tight, like she was cold even indoors. I tried not to stare. Failed at that too. You okay? I asked eventually. MMHM. That wasn't an answer. The ceiling fan clicked overhead. A dryer buzzed somewhere behind us. Finally, she sighed and rubbed beneath one eye with the heel of her hand. My husband thinks I'm taking too long here lately. Something in my stomach dropped hard and immediate. I looked down at the sock I'd been folding for almost a full minute. Oh, he asked if I was coming here to avoid him. And are you? The second it left my mouth, I regretted it. Claire looked at me then. Really looked at me. Not angry. Just tired in a way that made her seem suddenly older than 46. Sometimes, she admitted quietly. I nodded once. Didn't trust myself enough to say anything else. A couple entered the laundromat laughing loudly, carrying overflowing baskets between them. Young. Comfortable. One of those couples that touched constantly without realizing it. Claire watched them for half a second too long. Then she looked away. I should probably stop coming here, she said. The words landed gently. Still hurt. I forced a shrug I didn't feel. It's just laundry, right? But neither of us believed that anymore. The couple took machines near the back. Their voices filled the room in uneven bursts, making our silence feel even heavier somehow. Claire sat down finally, leaving one empty chair between us. Not close. Not far either. I noticed she'd stopped wearing her wedding ring tonight. That shouldn't have mattered. It did. My brain kept building stupid little futures out of nothing. Coffee somewhere. A longer conversation. Her laughing in my apartment kitchen for some reason. Every imagined scene ending right before something irreversible happened. Like even my fantasies knew better. You're doing that thing again, she murmured. What thing? Leaving mentally. I let out a quiet laugh through my nose. Sorry. You apologize constantly too. Occupational hazard. Of what? Being alive, I think. That made her smile despite herself. Small. Quick. Still enough to loosen something in my chest. The dryer spun. Outside, rainwater slid under passing headlights in silver streaks. Then her phone buzzed again. She stared at it this time without reaching for it. Just let it buzz. Once. Twice. 3 times. Claire, I started. I know. Her voice cracked slightly on the second word. Not dramatic. Just human. She stood too quickly after that, grabbing her basket before the clothes were fully folded. A shirt slipped to the floor between us. I bent to pick it up at the same moment she did. Our hands touched, and neither of us moved away immediately. Her face was suddenly very close to mine. Close enough that I could see how tired her eyes were. Close enough to notice she'd stopped breathing properly. I thought, no. Honestly, I don't even know what I thought. That she might kiss me. That I might let her. That maybe we'd both been walking toward this for weeks without saying it out loud. But then the laundromat door opened behind us. Cold air rushed in, and Claire pulled her hand back so fast it was like the moment had burned her. She stopped coming for almost 2 weeks after that. No explanation. Just absence. Which turned out to be louder than anything we'd actually said to each other. I still went to the laundromat. Mostly out of habit. Mostly because not going would have felt too honest somehow. Every Thursday around 10:30, I'd glance toward the door and immediately hate myself for it. The owner noticed eventually. You waiting for somebody? He asked while wiping detergent off his hands one night. No. You looked up 6 times in 1 minute. I laughed awkwardly. Maybe I'm expecting a package. At a laundromat, people contain mysteries. Sure, kid. After that, I started bringing headphones just so I'd look occupied. Didn't help. Because loneliness gets worse once somebody interrupts it successfully. Your old routines stop fitting right. Silence changes shape. Then one night, close to closing, she came back. I almost didn't recognize her at first. No makeup. Hair tied up carelessly. Oversized coat zipped halfway wrong like she'd put it on while distracted. She looked exhausted. Still beautiful in that devastating, ordinary way tired people sometimes are. Hey, she said quietly. I stood too fast from the plastic chair. Hey. There was a long pause after that. Not awkward exactly. Fragile. She set her laundry basket down near the door, but didn't start unloading it. I almost turned around 3 times in the parking lot, she admitted. Something in my chest tightened. You didn't have to come. I know. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Outside, snow had started falling lightly against the windows, softening everything beyond the glass. Claire looked around the nearly empty laundromat and gave this tiny smile. I think we ruined this place. What do you mean? It used to just be laundry. I looked down at my hands. A folded receipt sat between my fingers, bent into smaller and smaller pieces while we talked. Claire, I had dinner with my husband tonight, she interrupted softly. I nodded once. And he was talking about some documentary he watched, and I realized. She stopped there, pressing her lips together briefly. I realized I haven't really listened to him in months. The honesty of that hit harder than if she'd cried. He noticed too, she said. I swallowed carefully. What happened? He asked if I was unhappy. And are you? There it was again. That question. Simple enough to ask. Dangerous enough to change lives. Claire let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh. You know the worst part, she murmured. I don't even think it started because I was unhappy. The dryers turned steadily behind us. I think, she paused, staring somewhere near my shoulder instead of directly at me. I think I just got used to feeling invisible. And then one day some 24-year-old looked at me like I was still fully there. I couldn't speak. Because the truth was, she had looked at me the same way. Like I wasn't background noise. Like my silences actually contained something worth waiting through. Claire sat down slowly on one of the plastic chairs near the window. I sat beside her, closer this time, neither of us pretending not to notice. Snow drifted outside under the parking lot lights. The whole world looked quieter than usual. I keep trying to convince myself this is harmless, she said. I stared ahead. Yeah, but it doesn't feel harmless anymore. No, it didn't. I could feel the warmth of her arm beside mine now, barely touching through our coats. My heart was beating hard enough to make me angry at myself. She turned toward me slightly. So tell me something honestly, she whispered. I looked at her. Her eyes searched mine carefully, nervously, like she already knew the answer and was afraid of hearing it anyway. What exactly are we doing here? After she asked that question, neither of us answered it. Not really. Because once certain things become real out loud, they stop belonging safely inside your head. Claire looked down first. Then she stood, folded the last towel in her basket with unnecessary precision, and said, I should go home. Home. That word sounded heavier now. I nodded like a coward. Yeah. She gave me a small smile that didn't fully arrive. Good night. Night. And then she left. No almost kiss this time. No lingering pause at the door. Just the sound of it closing behind her while snow kept falling outside like nothing important had happened. But something had. We both knew it. That was the problem. After that, she disappeared completely. 3 Thursdays passed. Then 4. At first I told myself it was temporary. Busy schedule. Bad weather. Life. By the second week, I started checking every woman who walked through the laundromat door before realizing it wasn't her. By the third, I switched laundry days entirely. Couldn't stand sitting in the same chair anymore. It made me feel ridiculous. Like some teenager waiting around for a person who never promised anything in the first place. One night, I almost asked the owner if he'd seen her. Didn't want to hear how pathetic the question sounded once spoken aloud. So instead, I started staying later at the university library, eating vending machine dinners, letting clothes pile up in the corner of my apartment until I ran out of socks completely, which felt weirdly fitting. Then one Tuesday around midnight, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. For a full second, I just stared at it. The message read, Your favorite dryer is still stealing socks. That was it. No name attached. Still, my chest tightened immediately. I sat there on the edge of my bed reading the sentence over and over like there was hidden meaning inside it. Maybe there was. I typed 3 different responses. Deleted all of them. Finally sent. Thought you vanished. The typing bubble appeared. Stopped. Appeared again. Then, almost did. I stared at that one a long time. My apartment felt unusually small suddenly. The radiator clicking in uneven bursts. Somebody upstairs dragging furniture across the floor. My untouched ramen getting cold beside me. I typed, Are you okay? No response. 5 minutes. 10. Then finally, I have a daughter. I blinked hard at the screen. For some reason, that detail hit me deeper than husband ever had. A daughter. A whole part of her life I'd never even imagined properly. She's 19, Claire sent after a minute. Home from college this week. I didn't know what to say to that. Not because it was wrong. Because it made everything suddenly real in this painful, grounded way. This wasn't fantasy anymore. Not lonely conversations in fluorescent lighting. Not harmless tension floating around unfinished sentences. This was a life. A family. History I hadn't lived through. I leaned back against the wall and closed my eyes. Then another message appeared. She asked me tonight why I seem happier lately. That one hurt. Not in a dramatic way. Quietly. Like setting something fragile down too hard. I started typing. Claire, maybe we should. Stopped. Deleted it. Started again. I don't want to make your life harder. Deleted that too. In the end, I sent nothing. And she sent nothing else. The next Thursday, I still went to the laundromat. I told myself I just needed clean clothes. But when I walked in and saw the chair near the window empty, something inside me went still in this strange, suspended way. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. 3 nights later, there was a knock on my apartment door. Soft, almost uncertain. I remember sitting completely still for a second, like my body already knew before my brain caught up. When I opened the door, Claire was standing there holding my missing sock. Actually holding it. Gray. Slightly stretched out. Probably stolen months ago by Machine 7, like she said. I stared at it. Then at her. You broke into the laundromat inventory. I asked quietly. She let out a tired laugh through her nose. Found it in my laundry basket. That's concerning. I considered keeping it. Bold escalation. For a second, it almost felt normal again. Then the silence returned. Not bad silence. Just honest. Claire looked exhausted up close. Her hair loosely tied back, sweater sleeves pulled over part of her hands against the cold. Like she'd left home without fully deciding to. You can come in, I said gently. She hesitated before stepping inside. My apartment suddenly looked painfully 24. Open textbooks. A drying towel over a chair. Half-dead plant near the window. 2 mugs in the sink because I always forgot to wash things immediately. Claire noticed all of it without commenting. I didn't mean to show up this late, she said. It's okay. She stood near the kitchen counter while I made tea mostly because I needed something for my hands to do. The kettle hummed softly between us. You know, she murmured after a minute. This is the first time I've ever seen where you live. I glanced back at her. Disappointed. No. That word came out too quickly. I looked away before she could notice the effect it had on me. When the tea was ready, we sat across from each other at the tiny kitchen table, knees almost touching underneath. Neither of us drank much. Claire kept turning the mug slowly between her palms. I talked to my husband, she said finally. My chest tightened immediately. Oh, we've been unhappy for a long time. She swallowed carefully. Long before you. I nodded, but didn't trust that information. Not fully. Because people say things when they're trying to survive difficult feelings. He asked me if there was someone else. I looked down at the table. And I asked quietly. Claire's eyes stayed on her tea. I told him I didn't know. That hurt in a completely different way than I expected. Not because it wasn't enough. Because it was honest. The radiator clicked somewhere behind us. Outside, a car passed slowly through wet streets. I keep trying to figure out what this is, she admitted. Whether it's real, or if we just found each other at lonely points in our lives. Maybe both, I thought. But I didn't say it. Instead, I rubbed my thumb against the side of my mug and said the thing I'd been avoiding for weeks. When you stopped coming, I paused. I thought maybe I imagined all of it. Claire looked at me then. Not startled. Sad. You didn't. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I nodded once, staring at the steam rising between us. I don't want to be the reason your life falls apart, I said carefully. You aren't. But I could become one. That landed quietly between us. Claire leaned back in the chair, eyes shiny now, but not crying. Just overwhelmed. Human. I think, she said slowly. The scary part is that nothing even happened. I laughed softly at that. One broken breath. Yeah. And somehow it still mattered. Neither of us moved for a while after that. Then finally, very carefully, Claire reached across the table and touched my hand. Not dramatic. Not desperate. Just her fingers resting lightly against mine like she was confirming I existed outside her own head too. I looked up at her. She gave the smallest smile. Tired. Nervous. Real. And quietly, almost like she was asking permission to feel it. Okay, she whispered. I squeezed her hand once. Okay. Things didn't change all at once after that night. That would have felt fake. Instead, life shifted slowly. Quietly. Like furniture being moved in another room. Claire and her husband separated 3 months later. Not because of me alone. I know that now. Some relationships end long before people admit they're ending. Ours just happened to begin while hers was already fading out in careful, exhausted silence. We took things painfully slow after that. Almost awkwardly slow. There were weeks where all we did was drink tea in my apartment kitchen while some terrible cooking show played in the background. Weeks where she'd stop by after work still wearing that oversized gray sweater, kick off her shoes near the door, and sit at my tiny table like she'd been doing it for years already. Sometimes we talked for hours, sometimes barely at all, and weirdly, both felt important. I met her daughter eventually. That nearly gave me a heart attack. Claire spent 2 full days pacing about it beforehand. She's going to think I've lost my mind. She probably won't. She absolutely will. But when it happened, her daughter just looked between us over coffee and said, "Honestly, Mom hasn't laughed this much in years." Claire cried in the car afterward. Not dramatically, just quiet tears while staring out the windshield at a red light. I held her hand over the center console and didn't try to fix it. That became our thing eventually. Not fixing every feeling immediately, just staying. About a year after we met, the laundromat owner finally replaced Machine 7. I remember Claire standing beside me holding detergent while the new dryer hummed quietly. "Well," she said, sounding genuinely disappointed. "End of an era." That machine built character. It built resentment. We smiled at each other for a second too long. Then the owner yelled from the back, "You two finally dating, or what?" Claire nearly dropped the laundry basket. I laughed so hard I had to lean against the folding table. Somehow that embarrassment broke the last remaining tension between us. After that, we stopped acting like our happiness needed disguising. Not publicly dramatic, just easier, more honest. These days, she still makes tea too strong. I still leave books everywhere. She still folds fitted sheets like they personally offended her. And every Thursday night, we still do laundry together even though there's a perfectly good washer in her apartment now. Habit, I guess. Or superstition. Sometimes I catch her watching me when she thinks I'm distracted. Not in some intense movie way. Just soft. Familiar. Like she's still a little surprised I stayed real after all the imagining. Truth is, I feel the same way about her. A few nights ago, we were sitting outside her building after bringing laundry upstairs. Cold air. Quiet street. Her shoulder resting lightly against mine on the bench near the parking lot. Neither of us saying much. Claire handed me my coffee and nodded toward my sock. "Careful," she said. "Wouldn't want to lose another one." I laughed quietly. Then she reached over and fixed my jacket collar the same way she did that first night. Same small gesture. Same stupid effect on me. And for a second, I saw all the versions of us layered together. Strangers under fluorescent lights. Lonely people circling unfinished feelings. 2 lives pausing at the exact same moment long enough to notice each other. Funny thing is, nothing about it looked extraordinary from the outside. Still doesn't. But sometimes love isn't loud. Sometimes it's just someone remembering how you take your tea. Sometimes it's staying long enough for silence to stop feeling lonely. And sometimes, if you're lucky, Machine 7 gives something back. Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?